Okay, this is the critical lap. This is the critical lap. Confirm.
Leave me alone. I know what to do.
Welcome back to the Critical Lap F1 podcast. It's race day. Daniel, how are you?
Doing all right.
Yeah?
How are you, Ruben?
I'm still awake. I feel like I had to fight to stay awake through that whole race, to be honest with you. But
no joke. Even though we weren't watching it last night at midnight, or I don't think you were. I wasn't.
No, I didn't. I'll admit, I'm not that committed yet to the staying up till midnight watching. For those of you who do, I mean, hats off to you to get up at the crack of dawn. I think in Europe that was probably a 6 a.m., 7 a.m., maybe 5 a.m. start time.
Yeah.
For me, that was a sit down on a Sunday morning and take my time with it.
Yep.
But no,
same
it was
here.
a good race. I'm still feeling good about things. I will say it was a little slower than I wanted it to be. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember my prediction or what it would come down to, and that was, whether it would rain or not. And I think had we seen some rain, it would have turned this beautiful track that everyone loves driving into a track where a little bit more overtaking or position changing might have happened.
Liven things up a bit.
Make for an interesting outcome. But
maybe, although when we get back to some of our storylines and review those, some interesting stuff with the moisture element here.
You said
and
it.
I mean, so before we jump in, by the way, I don't know if you can even see this, and for those of you who are listening, be glad. I have some sort of an allergy going on with my eye. I don't have pink eye, so I just want that on the record. It's allergies.
So Ruben, you and I both have been suffering from the same thing because all last week my left eye was the same, and I was telling people right and left, it's not pink eye, don't worry.
It's not pink eye. It's not recreational drugs. That's right. I thought I might have to take a leaf out of our friend Racing Blind 9 on YouTube. He does, I don't know if you've seen, he does some great track previews and really good like technical analysis. I've been loving his content. So shout out to Racing Blind 9. But he wears a patch a lot of times. Looks like a pirate. He's like a Canadian piratical F1 technical analyst, and I absolutely love it. But I didn't want to steal his thing, so I won't do the patch. But hey, welcome back to our new listeners and welcome to our new listeners. If this is your first time joining us, thank you. If you take a moment to like, subscribe, go ahead and follow and leave a comment for us. Maybe throw a question in there for us to answer on our next episode. But welcome back to the Critical Lap. We're excited to get into it today with a review of the Japanese Grand Prix at the Suzuka Circuit, or we probably need to go ahead and lock in that nickname for the circuit. We'll also check in on some of the storylines that we were following going into the race, kind of see if any of those paid out, and do a quick double check on our podium predictions, which I think, Daniel, spoiler alert, I think you won that one, but I don't think you won it for the reasons why,
No.
so I don't know if we count that or not.
No, I'm not taking credit this time. Not at all.
Yeah. Well, all right, let's jump into it on the race. I mean, we joked around a little bit about it, but Piastri summed up what maybe a lot of you were thinking after watching this one. I don't know if you saw the cool down room commentary, Daniel, where Piastri, they sat down to watch the TV and he said, that's all the highlights? That's all that happened in the race? For a race that felt pretty flat out. Nothing happened. And they kind of cut the cool down room off there.
No, it was a very boring cool down room. I think the funniest, maybe most awkward thing that happened is when they were showing the replay of Max and Lando exiting the pit lane. And neither of them even looked at each other. They were just, I think, you couldn't really see their face. I just imagined them just kind of being like,
yep, that might have been the most exciting. And Norris said there were no overtakes. I think he made a joke about it. Of course, he couldn't see everything that was going on in the field, but that's not true. Carlos Sainz, my boy, showed up with a really nice hairpin pass early in the race. And I think if you count none of the others, I think some of the others were a big offset in the tires and tire life and whatnot. But that pass from Sainz was at least nice to see old 55 jumping on the radar
early in the game. That's right.
Yeah. But no, the reality is a lot of this action took place in qualifying. If you had a chance to watch qualifying on Saturday, if you didn't, it might be worth going back and taking a quick look as they got honed in. But
you might kill me for this, but I would say qualifying was a little more exciting than the actual race this weekend.
I'm not going to kill you for that. I think I think that's honestly, if you look at the way they finished, and let's do some quick reviews here, I guess, just for those who haven't seen the race, this is your official last warning. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Max Verstappen with the win. Lando Norris in second place and Oscar Piastri in third. The big story really is that there was a shocking lack of position change really in the top 10. Technically, Isack Hadjar and Lewis Hamilton swapped for 7th and 8th respectively. But other than that, there were no position changes at the top 10 for the entire race.
Mm-hmm.
And that really just speaks to the fact that qualifying really did matter. Most of the work was done on Saturday in qualifying.
Yeah.
And the race kind of played out accordingly. So
you might argue that Tsunoda had a decent race where he went from 15th to finish 12th. I mean,
yeah,
some hard fought overtakes that were kind of, he really didn't go on a tear or hit a streak or anything. He really just kind of worked his way up. And one of them may have even been, a decent undertake or undercut. Yeah. Undercut.
He got his fresh tires first.
Right, something like that. Either way, he got ahead of Gasly and Lawson after the start. And so, and he also got driver of the day. I was thinking driver of the day might go to Hadjar just because, he's a Racing Bulls in the top 10. He's got a barb card. He's hanging on there. I mean, he basically gave up the spot to, you called it a swap. I mean, basically he conceded to a faster Ferrari at the hands of Lewis Hamilton. But other than that, that was the only. That's
not a bad race when a rookie in a Racing Bulls car has to concede one spot to a 7-time world champion in a Ferrari.
Yeah. So I mean, I would say he had a really good weekend, really good race in general. I would have liked to see him as driver of the day. Yuki got driver of the day. No surprise there. Home race, new car,
maybe
special.
Maybe only a handful of people online at that time watching the race.
Yeah, at that point, some people may be forgetting to cast their vote for driver of the day.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, not a lot of Frenchmen online ready to vote for Hadjar. Not that it's an entirely country-based voting process, but it definitely helps. No, I thought Yuki had a pretty good day. Hadjar, what's that meme where there's like the kids in the pool? And one kid is getting all the attention, and then the kid in the background is struggling to swim. I feel like there's like a happier version of that meme where all the attention is like on Yuki with like Liam Lawson sort of getting into a better car. And in the background, Hadjar is not drowning. He's happily swimming consistently every race since Australia. Australia was a rough time for him. But I think I would take Hadjar's rookie experience. Hadjar Kimi at this point. Hadjar's performing really well.
Antonelli today became the youngest driver to lead a Formula One race, breaking, I think, Max Verstappen's record for being youngest to lead a race previously. So proving himself
youngest driver with the fastest lap as well. Although that doesn't count for literally anything anymore.
Did he finish with? He did finish with the fastest.
He finished with the fastest lap. Right. Yeah. You could tell that the announcers had like a giant list of firsts for the youngest driver, and they were seeing how many they could make it to the end of the race for. Somebody's bingo sheet had fastest lap and lead a race. But good drive for Kimi. Honestly, really consistent for Kimi. And like you called out, Yuki with a 2-place jump. He was the driver with the second most number of place overtakes. That's the word I'm looking for. Overtakes. Can you guess who this first was with the most number of overtakes?
This weekend.
This weekend, most overtakes. And I granted a lot of those may have happened in pit strategy, but this one's going to surprise you. I'll give you a hint.
Was it Doohan?
He was having, it was Doohan. He was having the worst weekend up until that point. I think up until that point, if you'll excuse the pun, we were all asking ourselves, Doohan, what are you doing?
What are you doing? What are you doing? Although I will say his bad weekend came from a mistake. I don't know how much research you did into this, where it was in practice, and he crossed a kind of a point where you're supposed to manually shut your DRS.
Yeah.
And he didn't, and he hit kind of a flat out turn with his DRS open. And that's going to leave a lot of downforce out of the equation. And as you turn the car, well, it's going to turn into more of an airplane. So
So that's true. Free practice one, just to cover that. If you didn't see that, Jack Doohan with a huge crash. I don't know how you missed that if you're following any F1 news. It was a massive crash. I think they kept quoting it as a 50G crash.
Yeah.
Really glad to see Jack Doohan walking around in perfectly good health.
Driving a car.
Yeah, apparently doing just fine. A new car, because he said they said, well, you got a new car or whatever. He said, yeah, they had to replace a lot of stuff. They said literally the seat, because I think he said the seat cracked in half.
Wow.
I think that's what I heard him say, was the seat had cracked in half, which that's got to be terrifying. But yeah, a great turnaround for Jack Doohan. I think at this point, he's the rookie we all kind of want to see get it together, because he's just had a tough start to his season. And there was a lot of talk about how he had a limited number of races to show off.
Yeah, he's got Colapinto there, just, already a proven F1 driver, half a season at Williams. Just,
right.
Waiting to step foot into that same car.
That's right. All the Argentinians just waiting. Colapinto's Argentinian, right?
I believe, yes.
Okay, that sounds right. Well, other than that, not a whole lot. A couple overtakes, like we already covered, by Lewis Hamilton. Fernando Alonso got one, and Carlos Sainz got one very early on in the race. And otherwise, a lot of drops across the board. So not a lot to see over. I honestly, Norris's ill-advised attempt to pass Verstappen coming out of that pit exit was easily the most exciting moment in the race. And ultimately, if you watch the cooldown room, especially, you could tell he knew it was a bad attempt. He knew he was never going to swing.
He even, and even in the post-race interview, he was kind of like, Max Verstappen is the last person I would expect to give me even an inch of room. He was kind of just saying, like, I don't even know what I was thinking. Right. Max is the last person to give anybody any space. He kind of, it was kind of just like, fair enough, whatever.
Honestly, his decisions make me question. That decision makes me question a little bit. I love it. It's playful. And he ended up in second place and in the room with Max Verstappen. And arguably that's what it would have happened. But I was a little bit irritated at that moment because he was trying to pass. And my initial thought watching it live was, don't do that. Like, well, first of all, they cut away live. And that drove me nuts. They cut over to like a Ferrari pit stop.
I hate that.
What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when they came back, my first thought was, you can't make that pass. And now you're fishtailing in the grass. And Max Verstappen is getting an immediate 2.5 second jump on you. And that 2.5 second jump never dropped below 1.
Well, part of that 2.5 second jump too is that I think Albon was overtaken. Albon hadn't pitted yet, and he was overtaken by Max pretty quickly.
Right,
and then I think it was just part of the track that they were in. It took Lando a minute to get around him. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe that wouldn't have made a difference, but
I think it was
part
a
of me
combination
just wondered,
of the two.
like, tuck in behind. You would have been a half second behind right off the bat.
I think mirrors. In Norris's defense here, I think once you cross the speed limiting zone or speed limiting line, that piece of track is a piece of track. It's a turn, right? If you think about it, and if he's the right amount of alongside a different driver, he should be entitled to that amount of space or to that car width of space. Now, stewards noted it,
sure, and
then they didn't investigate it. They noted it and they were like, no further investigation, which I think is fine. I don't think that you should, split hairs on a, re-entry from pit lane, because it was very, very much a kind of a Hail Mary shot on Lando's part. Max was ahead of him going into the pit lane. I think Max's stop was just a little bit longer. I think it was like 3.3 seconds versus the normal, short 2s to 2.5.
Right.
So, I think it was maybe just like a very competitive attempt at getting a small advantage that ended up hurting him a little bit more than it would have helped.
Listen, I don't take issue with that. I think they said he went in with a 1 second gap to Norris, and then he got a 3-3 stop, and Norris got a 2-3 stop. So exactly a second loss in the pit lane. And I don't blame Norris for going for it, but I think he would have been wiser when he realized Max is going to shut the door to tuck in behind and fill up his mirrors for a lap or two before they caught up to Albon. But anyway, coulda, woulda, shoulda, and I'm not sure it would have massively changed. Let me ask you this. So at one point at about lap 40, somewhere in there, 42, 43, with a good 10 laps, 12, 15 laps to go, Piastri went on the radio and kind of said very politely, hey, if this is Norris's pace, if he can't catch anything else, like, can we swap? I think I've got the pace to catch Verstappen. Should they have swapped right then and there?
They definitely shouldn't have started the conversation right then and there, because anytime, like, I'm sure the team is thinking like, okay, this is one of the options we have at our disposal. I don't think the drivers are really that much of a catalyst to getting it started. They're a big catalyst in getting it executed, right? But having the concept, started isn't necessarily up to the drivers. I think the teams are already going like, hey, check out these stats. Hey, check out this data. It looks like maybe Piastri is faster in these turns. Maybe the hairpins seem to be where Lando was losing a little bit to Max. I think that it would have made for a more interesting race. I don't know if it would have changed the outcome for McLaren in general. I think McLaren has to think, okay, Lando finishes third. Well, now Max is the world championship leader.
Right.
We're thinking about future races. Lando finishes second, which we seem like we can probably just hang on and he'll finish second. He's still a point ahead, and there's a slight advantage going into the following week. So I think, should they have changed for the outcome of that one race, maybe later in the season when it's a different scenario and there's less season ahead of you to like protect? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Get it done quickly. Give a younger, faster guy a chance. But I don't know if you remember this. There was a call between Red Bull and Max kind of saying, hey, we think this is all Lando has. So we're happy for you to push to the rest till the end of the race. I don't know if they were referencing Lando on that call or not, but they were just like, hey, we like the pace that you're at now, but we're also good with you to actually push. Like, is there anything left in the car? Can you do anything else? I don't think Max really turned it on from there, because Lando consistently stayed, 1.2 seconds behind him the rest of the race. But if there was something there, it seemed like Max could have easily just fought Piastri off just as easily as he was fighting Lando off.
Maybe so. And to be honest, I go back and forth between whether Norris or Piastri is the better driver. Norris seems to show more flash. He seems to get it done more often in qualifying. That single lap pace, but occasionally Piastri seems like he has the race more in hand. And I've yet to see Piastri fighting for a win or in the lead or defending where his consistency just didn't come out really obviously. So there's times where I kind of feel that I do wonder again, and we're going to ask ourselves, I feel like this, we're going to ask ourselves this question a lot this season, I think. How long will Piastri stay behind Norris before he starts to ask himself, what would it look like if they let him stretch his legs a little more? And again, look, do it in qualifying, right? Get ahead of Norris in qualifying, and we don't have this conversation. And that's what he did last week. And not last week, 2 weeks ago in China, and he got the win. So
yeah, exactly. And maybe one day we'll know papaya rules. Someone will publish those, and we can kind of go back and analyze the outcomes. There may be something there where it's like, look, guys, if this, then this, right?
Yeah.
If you get this spot in qualifying, if you out-qualify your teammate, then you get essentially the call or preference when it comes to, swapping, or if pace is different between you. At this point, though, I think McLaren has to think about the strategy for getting not only a constructor's title like they did last year, but also finally, hopefully soon, hopefully this year, with the car that they have and the driver pairing that they have, a driver championship.
Yeah. Well, right now, Lando Norris still leading by 1 point, 62 points to 61 points in the driver standings. Oscar Piastri not that far behind with 49 points. So that's an easy first place finish or two to catch up or go past. Both Mercedes drivers in fourth and fifth place respectively after that. So, we don't talk a lot about Mercedes. I do want to just give them a nod here a little bit. We talked a little bit last time about their consistency. I think consistency is the word right now. I hate to say it, but neither driver shows a ton of flash or flare. I'm not sure that car has a lot of flash or flare, but both drivers performing really consistently. And right now, it is looking like they will have no trouble locking in a strong second place finish in constructors if they just keep going the way they're going.
I think, what I could point to here is qualies. The only time that the Mercedes really seemed to perform a little bit better or stand out versus the others was in Q2. And I think the reason I want to bring this up is I think Yuki kind of got robbed in Q2. The grass caught on fire again.
Right.
They red flagged the session. Luckily, it was a red flag kind of in a an out lap or an in lap type setting for
Right.
all the drivers. No one had to cut their hot lap or their push lap short. But when everybody started coming back onto the track, and if you looked at the earlier, starts of, I think the two Ferraris went first. Yuki Tsunoda was not far after them, or not far behind them. Those first sectors were just garbage. I mean, they could not improve on their own first sector. Something happened in track evolution, or something happened with that cooldown of the red flag that just made restarting Q2 that much harder. And somehow the advantage went to the people who went out later. I think when they started back, there were a little bit over 8 minutes left. So slightly more than half of the of Q2. But, that's when I saw Mercedes kind of show out. And then, especially versus Ferrari. But then you look at the race outcome and you say, well, Leclerc, Mr. Ferrari, he's, the guy who knows the car the best, finishes ahead of both Russell and Antonelli. So,
yeah. Leclerc with probably the quietest race. I don't think I saw him more than once or twice.
Right.
But honestly, it was a relatively quiet race, so that's not saying a whole lot.
Yeah.
You've kicked off our check-in on our Japanese Grand Prix storylines, the first of which was Tsunoda and Lawson, the topic on everyone's tongues for the last 2 weeks, as Tsunoda's giving the nod and given that second seat at Red Bull. What's your overall reaction? Everybody was waiting to see, let them do their talking on the track. Is Lawson going to be more comfortable in the Racing Bulls? All the different plot lines there. What's your total takeaway from this weekend?
I think it was the right move for Red Bull. I think Tsunoda's proven to be capable in that car. Seeing the livery, the special livery, I like it. We talked about, I like the Haas better, the pink, the cherry blossom of the Haas better, and Behrman performed better than Tsunoda, so I'll take that one as well. But to be honest, I like seeing that kind of retro Honda logo and font on the side of the car. I like the white on dark. I don't know if it's navy or just straight up black, but I kind of like seeing the white Red Bull a little bit better than the navy Red Bull, honestly. But takeaways on Tsunoda specifically, he outperformed Lawson. Didn't out qualify Lawson. I think maybe again he was kind of at a disadvantage for that red flag in Q2. But the race result speaks for itself. He didn't have, first time out in the Red Bull, he didn't have a terrible outcome like Lawson did in those 2.5 races first, right out of the gate early season. So I think that success this weekend. I expect a better outcome next weekend. At one point in practice, he was, 0.3 behind Max. More to come from Yuki, I think, and the right call for Red Bull.
Yeah, I think more to come. I do think it's the right call. I do think the sample size of one makes it hard. He was consistent. And got a couple of overtakes in there and ended up 2 spots ahead of where he qualified. It will be very little fanfare because he won't score any points, and so there won't be much to show for it. I still have some questions in the sense that I know that China was a little bit crazy with all the disqualifications and so forth, but Liam Lawson put 8 spots. I mean, his qualifying was bad, but he added 8 spots to finish 12th. And in this sprint race that weekend, he added 5 spots to finish 14th, which, again, these are really bad qualifying results. And I think that speaks to Yuki Tsunoda being able to come to grips with that car faster, but not terrible performance from Lawson if you consider the fact that you still have the biggest gap between Max Verstappen and Yuki Tsunoda in terms of teammates on any other team. I think the final gap between them was 12 spots, and everybody else maybe 8, 9 on some of those big discrepancies. So I think we have more to see there, more to come. I do think it's the right call, but I'll be curious to see more. Daniel, one of your plot lines you were following was moisture. And frankly, I don't think we got enough of it. The grass was on fire all through qualifying. The sparks from the car literally lighting the grass on fire. I've not seen that before. It was a little exciting. They were trying to hose it all down. And then today, I found it funny. The race was frankly slow enough. Reading between the lines, one of the announcers at one point said, unless something happens, something major happens, like we saw yesterday with the grass lighting on fire. I think they were hoping the grass would light on fire, kick off a red flag, and and mix up the pit strategy a little bit and add some flair to the race.
Yeah, honestly, it was very reminiscent of 2022, 2023, where Max leads every lap, very little contention for his spot. Nothing really happening, nothing you could really expect. And you just sit there kind of wishing for something. Now, there was a slight chance of some rain kind of halfway through the race. Obviously, nothing materialized. I was hoping for a fire too. I wanted just anything to kind of switch it up.
Yeah.
In fact, I was even thinking like, if someone just could drop a tire into the gravel or the grass and spin out and need recovery, I don't want anyone to crash, but what if there was just a virtual safety car or a safety car?
Right.
I think that this track was designed with smaller cars in mind. I think that the track is beautiful, fun to drive, fun to see those cars going, in those high speed corners, but just not great for overtaking and not great for a long GP mix up. Yeah.
Yeah. That definitely seems to be the case. I think the rain would have helped. If anything, the rain took away the one element that might have caused a red flag. I was waiting, though, given how many snaps we saw in the free practice sessions and then even in qualifying. I was waiting for, like you said, for one car to dip a tire and shoot gravel all over the track and cause an issue, but nothing there. All right, so I've got a question for you. We talked about this ad nauseum, but it's still my favorite hype train. Is the Williams hype train still on track? Or do we need to put an asterisk on that and say, is the Sainz hype train on track?
I think maybe Sainz is kind of starting to find a rut where he's that far behind Albon. I mean, maybe you could say there was a slight improvement this race versus the last race. I mean, he did finish P14. Sure. I would say he probably had a slightly better qualifying. He did a decent amount of team strategy before he pitted. He kind of held somebody, maybe Gasly back. Somebody was trying to overtake Sainz. He hadn't pitted yet. Albon was right behind him or kind of coming up, and the idea was, don't let this guy get away before Albon has a chance to come up behind him and chase him down. So it might have even been Behrman if I don't remember incorrectly, but yeah. So he's playing a part. He's doing his thing, and maybe there could be some improvements week over week. I was hoping for some slightly bigger increments in that improvement, in that gain.
Yeah. I was struck this race by the fact that, since apparently I'm going to overuse that meme of the kids swimming, that we put a lot of focus, or we'll stick to trains. How's that? We put a lot of focus on the Sainz-Williams hype train, and it's still sort of stuck at the station. And the Albon one is just going strong. Albon hasn't really put a foot wrong this entire season so far. 3.5 great races. Pretty fiery over the radio.
A little
bit more.
A little unhappy with team strategy.
A little unhappy and happy to and more than comfortable making his voice heard about that, which I don't know if he's just lacked an opportunity to do that in the past, or if there's something about Sainz coming in and maybe bringing some attitude and showing Albon. I don't know. I'm not sure what your take on that is. My guess would be that Albon has been there for a while. He's been comfortable. Someone like Sainz comes in with a lot of confidence, and Albon kind of realizes, hang on a minute, I can have some confidence here too. That's a bad strategy, right? I've got good tire wear. Stay off the radio. Leave me alone. And he's got the numbers to prove it so far.
I wouldn't doubt it at all. It could also just be a competitive thing, right? Because Albon has had a couple of years of just, by a long shot being the better driver, being the most competitive one, and the most capable one. And, he only had Sargent and a rookie to contend with last year. And this year he's got a very proven podium finisher in Carlos Sainz. So who knows? It could be a little bit more confidence. It could be a little bit more, stress or self-consciousness.
I don't know what it is. I just know that at the moment he's scored points in every race except for the sprint race. So every Grand Prix he's had points in it. And if you didn't put the names on the cars, there would be an obvious leader of that team, and it's Alex Albon.
Yep.
And I don't know that's ever been said about Alex Albon. And as given that I really like the guy and I've wanted to see him succeed for a while, it's exciting to see that. And that was one of the main plot lines. I think the Williams hype train is still there. They're still performing quite well, and so I'm excited to see them see how the season continues to play out. Let's see, double checking our team standings right now. Williams is still in 5th place. They need to catch up to Ferrari. Ferrari had a really good output this week, but I think we expected that jump from Ferrari. And speaking of Ferrari, that was our last plot line we were following. Is Ferrari going to bounce back this week? I've got a big meh on that. I don't know. They performed well, but nothing outstanding. Nothing that I think they would have wanted to see something a little better.
I mean, Leclerc's 1 position away from podium. So, not that close. So he finished 16 seconds behind Piastri. So
Right.
I would say, he is, but when I say best of the rest, by the way, I mean best of the teams that you would be surprised to see on a podium anytime. So not Ferrari, not Mercedes, not Red Bull, not McLaren. Best
Sure.
of the rest in terms of not the typical race winners the last several years. But when you're number 4, when you're, best of not on the podium, that says something too. And if you can consistently be there, then you can consistently compete for at least constructors championships, right? But the one thing that you need is both cars to be that consistent and placing that well. And, Hamilton, both Mercedes split the 2 Ferraris between Leclerc and Hamilton. So,
Right.
we'll see. There's, again, a lot of season ahead of us. The learning curve is probably not completely behind Hamilton. And, if Hamilton could just be as consistent as Leclerc, then, yeah, put him in 4th and 5th. And I would say that story continues to develop and continues to prove itself.
Given how high performing Verstappen is right now, we've joked about that Red Bull team really being Team Max. Maybe Yuki starts pulling it up, but for the moment, the Max Verstappen team is in 3rd place and will hold 3rd place with his current performance. If he continues to get 1st and 2nd position in future races, the Ferraris simply won't be able to catch up. Both Hamilton and Leclerc's combined efforts won't be able to catch up simply because the McLarens and the Mercedes aren't going to get out of the way. And if the performance even stays marginally similar, McLaren will run away with the Constructors' Championship. Mercedes will consistently hammer away at 2nd. And the 2 Ferraris, they won't have enough top positions left to unseat the Max Verstappen team. That's
100%.
Even without Yuki jumping in. So
100%. I agree with that.
Ferrari's got to start feeling a little panicked right now, I think, if they don't get this.
Right.
If they don't get some pace going.
If this weekend and Max's performance was not a fluke, if it's not just a crazy combination of Max knows the circuit well, he somehow squeezed out the best lap time in Q3, and then had the perfect strategy to stay ahead the whole race. Yeah, you're absolutely right. If he can continue doing this, and let's just say getting lucky versus 2 very fast McLaren cars, then you're absolutely right. Not only is Red Bull going to be competitive in the Constructors' Championship for that 2nd, 3rd, 4th place, and then kind of throw a wrench in the gears of the other teams that are going for that 2, 3, 4 spot, Verstappen could be in contention for another Drivers' Championship. I mean, he is 1 point behind the, let's just say, season favorite right now. So, again, if this was not a fluke, if Max really can get that car to perform consistently and put, the first 2.5 races behind him as, just whatever it took to kind of get the car under him for the season.
Right.
And as long as Red Bull doesn't repeat the mistake from last year of over-developing or over-improving the car into just
the Max Verstappen car.
Yeah. Yeah. Changing the Max Verstappen car away from what's best for Max or away from what's best for drivability. Then, here we are again. Could be.
Right. Yeah. And that we talk about all the time, the changing formulas here. We've already talked a lot about Max Verstappen. Will he be there past 2025? He has a contract through 26, I think, but everybody's got a contract through 26. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. I did note that this weekend there was more chatter about that. I'm going to have to find off the top of my head. I don't have it. The team principal of Aston Martin was chatting with the announcers. What's his name? Cowell? I had it here somewhere. He was chatting with, anyway, he was talking on the track after qualifying session, and they were asking him directly, what are you doing? Do you think Verstappen might come over? There's a lot of talk about Verstappen. And he had some generic phrase, Andy Cowell. Sorry, that's his name, Andy Cowell. he had some generic, we're set for 2026. We've already got Alonso and Stroll, or we've got our drivers for 2026. But after that, who knows? I think there's more and more hype, and that formula continues to change. If Max Verstappen, like you said, manages to get a 5th title and win the 3rd place Constructors Championship, 3rd place in Constructors, based entirely or mostly on his performance, that's a fascinating conversation about whether you could retain that driver or not. But,
And, Aston's got 2 things that have worked well in combination with Max Verstappen, and that is Adrian Newey designing a car and a Honda power unit coming up. So,
Right. Well, that's exciting to think about. Anything else? I'm trying to think if there's... one other thing. I'm just curious about this one. Did you notice that in this race, they did like a rookie time sheet thing down in the bottom right corner? It's like a rookie roundup. It had like all the different gaps in the rookies to the leader. But it was just hanging out down there in the bottom right. And it was kind of sad because at one point it was like a lap and a half for Bortoletto or something.
Yeah.
But apparently we're all keeping tabs on the rookies. I will say I am impressed. I feel like this crop of rookies, there's a lot of them, but a lot of them are doing quite well. Hadjar, Doohan had a huge recovery this week. We've already covered that. Kimi Antonelli and Hadjar are kind of the standout rookies. But did you catch Bortoletto screaming over an open mic when he almost crashed in 130R?
No, I didn't.
It was during free practice 3, and he cruised a little too close to the right-hand side and dipped a wheel in the grass, and his car like snapped. But I don't know if he dipped it a little bit and then he started to report that it was a wheel problem. I don't know. All I know is that he dipped a wheel and he said, "Mate, there's something wrong with the wheel." And he just screamed over the open mic. He was, "Oh, I almost crashed." And they were all like, "You're okay?" And then they showed it, and it's like a pretty big snap. I mean, he would have had a bad crash, but I don't think I've heard a driver actually just scream over an open mic yet. So good for him to not put it in the wall. But, all right, should we do some quick reactions?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, I've got a quick reaction for you. We'll just kick it right off. Daniel, which rookie is impressing you the most?
I got to give it to Hadjar. I mean, Hadjar,
right,
2 spots behind Antonelli in the Mercedes. What if Hadjar were in a Mercedes? Could he do what Antonelli's doing? Could he best Russell? I mean, he's in a junior varsity car. I mean, he's in the little sister car of Red Bull. So
junior varsity car.
He's, how is he consistently, I mean, brand new in this car. How is he doing it, And outperforming Lawson, who was in this Racing Bulls car last year. I got to give it to Hadjar as the most surprising rookie to date. Now, Antonelli has a ton of hype behind him, a ton of promise. He is, very young and still very good. So, I think he's got a lot of promise and he's got a future
he's
ahead
the
of him.
youngest driver to lead a race.
Right.
And the youngest driver with a...
Exactly. So, I got to say, of the rookies, those 2 guys. Now, I'm a big fan of Doohan, and I was kind of pulling for him. I think Bortoletto may have more talent than he has car to express that talent in. But we'll just have to see what Audi does next year.
No, I'm with you. I think I think the nod has to go to Hadjar a little bit, and that's the bias of the fact that we assume that car is not nearly as good, and I don't think it is. So the fact that he's performing where he is consistently, and you can point to the spin out on formation lap, but if you put that one away, Hadjar's doing really well. It's tough to throw Kimi under the bus because he's got a great car. We discredit maybe that a little bit. Kimi's doing really well as well, but I think it's Hadjar. I think you're right.
All right. So speaking of Hadjar, here's one for you.
Okay.
What was hurting Hadjar in qualies?
Well, he split his seat in half. Just like I don't know. I'm not sure I want to know. Listen, okay, for those of you who didn't watch all the free practice sessions and then qualifying sessions, in qualifying, he just came over the radio very agitated. It was like, "Mate, it's still hurting. Like, it's still, the problem's still here. The problem's still here."
He couldn't even focus. He couldn't even put it in a lap because it was so painful.
Well, then they asked him, "Do you need to get out of the car?" So that makes me think it's something under. I feel like that was somewhat of it's a shocking movement to make.
What?
Something under. something under him that required him to get out and them to make an adjustment. I don't know.
I have to believe something was pinching him. I think he was
Pinching him.
I think he was getting pinched. Before he was given the chance to get out of the car, they were trying to do some adjustments, and they were given that driver, face cam or whatever while he was in the pits. They were in the garage. They were trying to adjust it, and he looked like he
did not look happy.
He was grimacing in what seemed to be pretty excruciating pain.
Yeah.
So I can imagine, being in a position where something is bound up or twisted and hurting, and then pulling those G's in different directions, brakes, accelerating, turning left and right. I can't imagine.
Every male listening just sort of adjusted themselves in their seat. Yeah, geez.
So apologies for your wedgie, Hadjar. I hope you, maybe you could have gotten P7 instead of P8 this week if you hadn't been.
That was the
abused.
first thing he said to his mechanics. He got out. He was like, imagine if I hadn't had a wedgie that whole time. I just love how right now, if you're a non-American, the pinched is a deep South. That's a deep South accent, right?
And for those of you who don't
got pinched,
can't detect or can't understand the accent, pinch.
Translate.
Pinch is the word.
Yes, pinched. That we already did junior varsity. I don't even know what the translation for junior varsity is internationally. A second 11, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. I got another quick reaction for you. Okay, this was a little bit of I'll give you some context. Does it seem to you that Lance Stroll is increasingly detached in Formula One? Like I'm not trying to be like nasty. I just mean does it seem like he increasingly does not have any energy?
Yeah, I didn't want to talk about Stroll this episode because we're not very nice to Stroll on and off the air, to be honest.
Yeah.
But truly, I mean, I do get a little concerned for the guy. I mean, does he get some welfare checks? Is he, is someone else flying on his jet with him between races just to make sure that he's not, spiraling?
Wow.
I mean, it's lonely at the top, guys. We know that.
It's lonely at the top.
So, Stroll, are you okay, man?
Okay, well, that's the context. It does seem like legitimately, I kind of want the best for Stroll. And I will go on record as saying, by the way, nobody gets to pick their parents. Nobody gets to pick how they get where they are, right?
Yeah.
So some of these guys are there and we all love them because we're like, oh, they fought their way up from the bottom. And it's like, Stroll's like, all right, my bad. I was born to a billionaire family. What am I going to do about that?
All of the shade and hatred from me, at least, just comes from just absolute jealousy. Because
full deep jealousy.
Yeah, just straight up, just all envy over here. But
I have neither $1 billion nor a private jet nor a seat in F1.
Yeah.
My question for you, my quick reaction was not, does he look more detached? It feels like he's more detached in his interactions and in his interviews and so forth. If that's the case, has he already been told we're going to try to get Max Verstappen, and when we do, you will lose your seat? I can't keep you and Max and drop Alonso. I made a joke about it was time for Alonso to retire. You got to assume that Daddy Stroll is, if he could get Verstappen and Alonso side by side, sorry, Lance, you're the backup driver at that point.
So part of the car development has to do with the driver in the seat, right? Someone has to articulate what's happening when the car is on track, right? There's only so much the simulation can do. I mean, if you think about what happened with the no side pods Mercedes, if you've done any research there, it's because the simulator cannot simulate the high speed that those cars go, right? There's just not enough capability in the simulator. There's even essentially a treadmill track underneath the car as the wind is blowing over. It's simulating what it's like to be going over a surface at that speed, but it cannot go past, 160 miles an hour, some number that, is below the top speed on track. So you've got to keep Lance Stroll to give you that feedback. You got to have you got to have a driver. You got to have a warm body in that car. And if that warm body, if you get to choose, especially for car development, if you get to choose between two world champions or two drivers that can at least give really good technical feedback and know how to connect the dots in what changes were made to the car and what that manifests on track. If Stroll isn't putting in that work, or if he just doesn't have the skill that Alonso has or that Verstappen has, then they're obviously those are the obvious picks if you can get those guys in that car. Plus, not to mention just the the advertising dollars that Max would bring with him, the money that you know, the
Right.
development that would mean for the car if that bigger budget were to come with him.
And that part, I feel like, is a question of, do you think Verstappen will be an Aston Martin? My question is more of, does Lance already see the writing on the wall and realize his time in Formula One is coming to an end? It does seem like he's lost a lot of energy.
There's
and I feel for the
definitely
guy.
there's definitely a chicken and egg situation here, right? Was he told, like, look, buddy, you gotta do something a little bit better, otherwise, like, it doesn't make sense. No matter how much we like you, it doesn't make sense for you to stay in this car. Or it could have just been like, hey, buddy, Max is coming. This is your last year. You know,
Right.
that, like, I don't know, but nonetheless, somebody check on Lance. Let us
Somebody
know.
check on Lance. And listen, I do want to be fair to the guy. He has outperformed Fernando Alonso
Right,
all season
right.
so far.
He's got points,
except for today.
well, except for today,
So-
yeah. But
so
neither
that's-
of them scored points today. And going into the race today, Lance had points from both races, and
Right.
Alonso did not. Alonso had a DNF in one of those, right?
Yeah.
So maybe not the
Yeah.
most fair comparison, but yeah, I mean, Lance has outperformed this year so far. And on it, I'll pivot a little bit here. Lance is the kind of guy I would love to get to sit down with. I would love to just understand, his background and what his journey's been like, and what it's like to have your dad be such a big fan of the sport to the point that he invests the way that Lawrence has. I mean,
Right.
Lance,
and to have yokels like us constantly making fun of you.
yeah, having a couple armchair experts acting like they know a thing or two. Yeah, Lance, come on to the show and talk to us one day, friend. I mean, we are worried about you. We do share a little bit of things in common. We're both from the great North American continent, so
That's right. We both have billionaire parents. I've already
Yeah.
established I don't.
yeah.
But, to be totally honest, when it comes to Formula One, once your parents have millions, does it really matter if they have billions? You're going to get a good car seat.
Right. I mean,
None of
guys,
these drivers, with the exception of maybe Ocon and Lewis Hamilton, are coming from poor families
that's
here.
right.
So.
That's right. Everybody's had a silver steering wheel in their hand from an early
A
age.
silver steering
Most of
wheel.
them.
All
so,
right.
Yeah.
Well, last chance. You got a quick reaction for me?
Yeah. So the last one related to the McLaren. Had the strategy been perfect from McLaren, what do you think the last 10 laps would have looked like? Had Lando been on newer rubber by 5 or 6 laps, what does a point or a second and a half look like, behind
Right.
Max Verstappen? I think I'll just kind of wrap the whole conversation up here. I think that was the biggest miss from McLaren if they really wanted the top spot on the podium. So what do you think? Do you think that would have done anything, or do you think Max had something left in the tank?
I don't think that's the biggest miss. I think McLaren's biggest miss was their pit strategy and their pit timing. And I think the second biggest miss was they should have let Piastri hunt. You say that you're going to let your drivers battle, but both of your drivers have great points and are in second and third place with a great performing car. The definition of letting your drivers battle is letting Piastri go on by. And I hear you. You could say, well, he wasn't close enough. If he was close enough, he theoretically could have battled. They didn't tell him not to battle. They just told him not to get out of the way.
We didn't
So,
hear Papaya.
again,
I don't
that's
know
why-
if they said Papaya rules over the waves today. We didn't hear it. They didn't.
We
They
didn't
didn't
hear it.
decide to broadcast it. So
Yeah. So I that's again though why I don't think that's the number one mistake they made. I think the number one mistake they made was pitting both of their drivers, or pitting Norris along with Verstappen. I think that was a mistake. You could have pitted them on opposite strategies and ended up in a situation where, for better or worse, one of your drivers is going long and holding Verstappen off, or getting a little bit of traffic to go your way. And then you end up in a situation where at least potentially one of your drivers can slow Verstappen down and allow your other driver to go by. So I don't know. I think that was their better chance. That said, I think Verstappen had this win. I think he's too metronomic when it comes to this type of a race in the lead with a car that performs well enough. I don't think they were getting him today, but I think their better chance was pit strategy. I don't think letting Piastri go would have gotten it done.
all right. So words of the day so far: piratical. Love that.
And
And metronomic, guys. Metronomic, definitely a good way to describe Max. When he is in the zone, he is in the zone. And he can, when he gets that, advantage, he can really dominate. So agree with that. So now that we know what the outcome of the Suzuka race has been,
Yeah.
Can we finally decide on a good nickname for the track?
Well, yes and no. I think our options that we discussed were cosplay crossover because of the incredible costumes that they wear, very cosplay-like, and then the fact that it has the only crossover. We talked about broken ankles, and then Tsunoda place like home. None of those seem to align with the race we saw today. So I don't know where that leaves you.
I mean, Tsunoda did have one win, which was driver of the day, and I think that was probably due to the fact that it is his home race. So maybe Tsunoda place like home is the clear frontrunner for the nickname of this track. Okay.
I think we can do that, but it's a temporary name, right? It's not going to be Temple of Speed. We're going to have to fix it next year.
Yeah.
All right. Tsunoda place like home. It is, and I think that brings us to the end of our episode. So thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next time for our Bahrain. For our Bahrain Grand Preview.
I like Bahrain.
This
Bahrain's
week.
good. Let's do Bahrain.
We'll see you next time for that. And if you're loving the Critical Lap, please make sure that you subscribe, like, save us as your favorites. Please add a comment. We love seeing that feedback. Love hearing your questions. Thanks, as always, to our legendary pit wall engineer, producer on the wall there, Crispy. And we'll see you next time on the Critical Lap.
Thanks, guys. See you next time.